Chapter 26, Sylphiria. Bam. Kaiawea. Such theatrics, I thought, still feeling the recoil of the wooden sword from hitting bone. Seek all the priest. His arm is broken. Using sparring as a cover, I delivered a one-sided moral re-education to those half-assed brats who thought they were the rulers of the world just because they were born with silver spoons. 2 or 3 of them would be granted my mighty teachings every week. Today, I silently raised my sword and taught Tedran, who was cowering in fear. The sound of him gulping came loud and clear into my ears. Bam, bam, bam. Yua, please spare me. Ho ho ho, where are you going? You're mine. The poor sop who had been singled out by Hyneth on the first day, was beaten half an inch from death again today, and was desperately kowtowing into the ground. Let's end the sparring today with this. Those of you who need treatment, go receive it from the priests. Because of his own words, the muscle-headed Viscount Otwan was forced to hold the daily sparring sessions. He looked at me with a flummoxed expression, and I nodded to him slightly with thoughts of gratitude, if you could call it that. I'm all refreshed. Hyneth and I would let loose a flurry of beatings every sparring session. Rumors had already spread uncontrollably throughout the academy, so I knew that Hyneth and I were seen as fellow rabid dogs. But who cared? I was a free spirit who feared no one in this world. I'm going to do it today. When all our formal studies were over, we had free time. It was time to go talk to High Summoner Capuan. Or a bunny. Where are you going? Having put down the wooden sword, Hyneth had at some point returned to a pure manga protagonist character. I made an awkward smile in response to this extremely two-faced young girl. Jay just going to study a bit. Or a bunny just studies all day, pouted Hyneth adorably. Arg, why does your cute body give off the same scent as the king of martial arts, Bruce Lee? As soon as she held a sword, Hyneth's eyes would lose all reason. I looked at her huge, blinking eyes and was once again enlightened of God's impartiality. If a girl as cute as her were to have no faults whatsoever, there would be no shortage of guys going crazy for her. Let's go visit my house together sometime. My father said he was coming to our villa in the capital soon, so let's go then. Why? Thinking about the notoriety of Hyneth's dad, the current Count Petrin, who was a bona fide battle maniac and a person who would never let go if they bore down on someone, my confidence shriveled up. I was someone who lived tenaciously, but it would definitely hurt if I were bitten by a crazy dog. What do you mean? Why? Because you're the one and only Aura Bunny of me, Hyneth. Ho ho. I even told my father about it already, so he should treat you well. You'll come, right? Of course I will. I'll die if I rub him the wrong way, right? The Count family of Petrins was unrivaled in the continent. If they targeted you, they would chase you down for 3 generations. The thought of meeting the Count gave me a greater feeling of gravity than facing Tedran, the kid of a duke. Oh ho. Thank you, my beloved Aura Bunny. I want to become someone you will never forget. Forever. Guh. The word beloved came floating into my ears. The coarsest little sister in the world, Hyneth, made a shy face. Ha ha ha. Okay, let's always be this friendly in the future. Damn it. Why do I already want to forget this moment? Arg. How could I have known? How could I have known that Hyneth, a girl so cute that she could be the nation's little sister, was actually a Hulk's sister hiding such wild rage within her blood? Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. You want to know what a spirit feels like? Yes, sir, Count Capuan. You're in the night class, aren't you? But to have such interest in spirits. Count Capuan had told us all to come find him if there was anything we wanted to know about spirits. When I went to the spirit tower and told him what I wanted, he looked at me with surprise. I want to try summoning a spirit once. I confessed honestly. A spirit? Ha ha ha. You're a funny guy. For a knight to want to summon a spirit. That's the funniest joke I've ever heard in my life. Did you not say we could go find you if there was anything we wanted to know about spirits? I did, but most of that was directed to the summoners. It isn't wholly applicable to normal knights or mages. You'll be able to find out more than enough about the unique characteristics of spirit attacks through my classes. Geez, it won't even cost you any money, so why are you being so stingy? I could feel something like a summoner's pride from him. After all, summoners worked with their upper Dangian, which was based in the brain. It would be weird if they didn't have a sense of pride, considering that their brains were sharper than the rest. I heard that there's an array in the spirit tower where you can summon a spirit. Please allow me the opportunity to meet a spirit, I said, refusing to give up. Ah, young fellow. I know you are skilled enough to have been admitted to the Sky Knight Academy, but everyone has their limits. But to insist like this, let's push a little further. Unlike the other instructors, Count Capuan was rather good-natured. I was taught to be someone who dreams about the future. Please don't tell me to give up before I have even tried. All right. If you say that much, then how can I refuse? However, you must pay the price for wasting my time. Hooray! Count Capuan had also given me a warning, but I didn't even hear it. A spirit. I was determined to grab at the moment I met one, no matter what I had to do. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. You want to aim for a contract with a wind spirit? Yes? Of course. I want to become a summoner of wind who will be left in the annals of history. Like you, Count Capuan. Haha. Empty words they may be, they do sound pleasing to the ear. Spirit Array. As expected of the spirit tower within the Empire's capital, in the basement floor of the tower was a spirit summoning circle about 5 meters in width. The complexity was comparable to a fourth circle magic array. I don't know how much you know about spirit summoning, but the dimension of the spirit realm is more closely related to the middle realm, where we live, than the mana or celestial dimensions. The air we breathe and the water we drink and use, fire, wind, and earth are all infused with spirit power connected to spirits. As products of Mother Nature, humans are capable of manipulating that spirit power, but having an affinity that allows you to summon a spirit is a separate matter. The friendly Count Capuan was truly worlds apart from my prickly master, Bumdaff. He explained in detail the things I had learned in books. Along with that affinity, one needs pure mana that can summon a spirit, as well as a summoning array. Of course, the help of a summoner like me is also a necessity. Thank you for your help. In order to prevent him from backing out, I gave my thanks in advance. As long as you aren't greedy, there won't be any side effect from the summoning array. Only the magic crystal and spirit crystal will be consumed. Even if you fail, they will be used to forcefully open a path to the spirit realm, so they cannot be used again. I knew that would be the case, so I brought the magic and spirit crystals that will be used for the summoning array today. As long as the Count is willing to lend me a bit of their strength, there will be nothing to worry about. Oh, looks like you're well prepared. I was proud to say I had never forgotten something at home during all those school years. I was even called Mr. Preparation by the other kids. Then go stand on the spirit circle. Seeing my firm determination and thorough preparations, Count Capuan led me to the summoning array. Ho-ho, wait for me, spirits. Manage your breathing and focus your mind. Once the summoning array activates, I will use the connection from summoning my spirit to send you to the spirit realm. This was the reason why you needed a summoner's help. The summoning array alone could not forcibly open the path to the spirit realm. It was only by going through the invisible connection formed when a spirit was summoned that one could travel to the other side. Open sesame! My heart thumped wildly. Thanks to my master, I was able to do something others could never even dream of. I could get a taste of the sword, magic, and spirits as a 3-course menu. The thought that I could gain a new skill today made my heart beat faster and my head grow hot with excitement. Even if the spirit realm is opened, if you lack the affinity and mana, you won't be able to make a contract. If you are greedy like a fool, then you will never be able to return from the spirit world, so don't even think about overdoing it. Count Capuan gave me a final warning. I nodded in response. Then I heard the words I'd been waiting for. Summon Sylph. The faint traces of a Sylph appeared above my head. Activate Magic Array. Then, with a buzzing sound, the Magic Array was activated. Whoa! So this is what it felt to have your soul sucked into a different dimension. A thin ray of light shone from a gap the size of a needle. It suddenly turned into a huge hole in front of me, and my body was drawn into it as if sucked by a straw. Yuwawa! Count Capuan had lied when he said there would be absolutely no side effects as long as one wasn't greedy. The feeling of my soul being sucked out was extremely painful. This spirit summoning array should have a warning on it forbidding pregnant people, the old and infirm, and young kids from experiencing it. As I traveled through the gate open to the spirit realm, I was once again reminded of a fact. In this world, there was only one person I could trust. Me, myself, and I. Woo-woo. For the first time in my life, I experienced a world of stars. It's so pure and clean. Previously, I had only read vague descriptions of the spirit world. It was not extraordinarily different from a human world. However, the air was clean without even a single speck of dust, and the sky was as blue as it could be. There was also clear water and extremely fresh, green plants and flowers. G gold. And those are gems. In addition, I saw mountains of treasure acting as hills here and there. This world came very close to my idea of paradise. Whoa, there are fish in the sky. A school of fish was swimming in the air. Several birds were playing in the water. This world overturned all laws of physics. Will you contract with me? Eh. A cute fairy the size of my fist approached me as I floated in the air as if using fly magic. It's a sylph. I had seen an intermediate wind spirit, but not the small sylph. Its characteristics were just as the books had described, and my jaw dropped at the sight of it. It's really cute. This blue pixie that was as small as an adult's fist wore a cute cone hat made of wind was seriously super adorable. All right, I'll make my first contract with you. Thank you, my summoner. It's different from what they said in books. Spirits tended to have rather high pride, so it was unusual for them to seek out a contract on their own initiative. I had also never heard of a spirit thanking the summoner for a contract. The sylph was acting as if I were its owner. Wahaha, this is great. Even in the spirit world, my potential was clearly recognized. Let's make a contract with them all while I'm here. Ooh-ho-ho. Dozens of sylphs had gathered around me. I didn't think I was just imagining their eyes of envy as they stared at the sylph I had contracted with. Oh, aren't those gnomes? My eyes were then drawn to some gnomes, lower earth spirits. They were flailing their short limbs on the smooth ground and playing in the dirt. With the force of my will, I naturally moved towards the gnomes. Will you contract with me? Upon seeing me, a brown-skinned gnome who looked like one of the dwarfs from Snow White stopped playing in the dirt and quickly asked me if I wanted to make a contract. Of course, I will contract with you. Thank you, my summoner. Oi, who said it was hard to contract a spirit? I was easily concluding contract after contract. Blub, blub, blub. Wow, those little ones are undines. My gaze flitted from spirit to spirit, busily looking at the spirits scattered in all directions. I urgently moved my body toward the group of spirits I saw. Young ladies, what do you think? Will one of you contract with me? I demonstrated a lady's first mannerism and offered a contract to the undines with blue bodies that were about the same size as 5-year-old kids. One of the undines nodded in place of a response. Score. Unexpectedly, I was able to secure contracts with 3 elements. Next is the salamander. My body moved on its own in excitement to a place where flames flowed like water. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Ooh-ha-ha-ha-ha. I considered publishing a book called Spirit Summoning was easier than studying. It was truly far easier than I had expected. After making contracts here and there, I reached a point where I had even concluded contracts with intermediate spirits. Where are the high spirits? I wanted to see high spirits, not just lower and intermediate ones. But high spirits were nowhere to be found, even in this grand spirit realm. If I can, I'd also like to see a spirit king just once. No human had ever laid eyes on a spirit king before. The earth spirit king, Torowell, fire spirit king, Ifrit, the wind spirit king, Minerva, and the water spirit king, Elquinus. Though I wanted to see one, there were only lower and intermediate spirits around. Should I just go back for today? For some reason, I couldn't help but feel regret. I looked in all directions and licked my chops. Suddenly, a strand of cold wind blew over. The moment the wisp of wind passed by me, the spirits playing around in my surroundings disappeared as if they were never there. What is this energy? I felt a powerful energy around me. My guard went up immediately. Because only my soul had come to the spirit realm, I didn't even have a sword on me. Does magic work here? I quickly organized the spells I had memorized in case of danger. While I was doing so, a second burst of wind came towards me. Whoa! And then, there she was, around 10 meters ahead of me. Knight. Surprisingly enough, a knight wearing transparent silver armor was staring at me with cold eyes. Why is there a knight in the spirit realm? And it's a woman. The sight in front of me could not be explained with what I knew of the spirit realm. I stared blankly at the female knight who had appeared. Who are you? Telepathy. Her mouth didn't open, but a clear voice rumbled into my ear like thunder. I thought it might be telepathy, which I had read about in martial arts novels. I am a human. I responded with my habitual snark. Human? No, a human cannot possess such strong spiritual affinity and spirit mana. I ask you again, who are you? I couldn't see her face under the helmet, but her voice alone was clearer and purer than any sound I had heard from a woman before. She's like a character from a game. Instead of answering, I looked at the woman knight's armor. The silver armor inscribed with a shining, unknown script that wasn't rune language. The light it emitted was shinier than mithril and nobler than gold. It was a truly incredible-looking armor. It looked like armor that would be worn by a boss character in a game. "May I ask who you are?" I suddenly asked. "I am one of the 12 Archspirit Guardian Knights of Minerva, Sylpheria." Sylpheria? Huh? Wasn't the Archspirit of Wind called Sylphide? The books definitely said the Wind Archspirit was called Sylphide. But the spirit in front of me had called herself Sylpheria. A spirit does not lie. I could only believe her. There was no way a pure spirit would lie. Kia, her figure is a masterpiece. Under her silver armor, Sylpheria's 175 centimeters tall body was very slim. My eyes were enlightened from just looking at the beautifully drawn curves of her armor, which was crafted from some mysterious metal. Kang Hyuk, now you're even like this to a spirit. However, I could only shake my head inwardly at these thoughts. Getting called a pervert because of Russell was already enough. How could I possibly give my heart to a spirit who wasn't a human? I wonder how her face looks? But I couldn't resist those intrusive thoughts. The silver hair that wisped out of her helmet really induced my curiosity. This must be fate, so let us make a contract. Contract? With me? The higher a spirit's grade, the greater their intelligence. Sylpheria showed surprise at my sudden words. Have you recently contracted with a human? And no. Makes sense. There are only a few summoners who have contracted with archspirits until now. Are you not curious about the middle realm? A person, no, a spirit, cannot just live day after day on clear air alone. Be it the smell of food made by people, the sound of hubbub, the happy sound of beer going down the throat, or the roaring of violent fighting. The middle realm is squirming with life and will surely show you a dynamic spectacle. Kaya, doesn't the thought of it just make your heart race? I should become a door-to-door salesman later. After getting baited by my master, my hobby was now to bait others. I could tell with a single glance that this archspirit didn't know the ways of the world. She became my #1 target for today. When will you have another opportunity? Another human with strong spiritual affinity and mana like me may never appear again. Well, it doesn't matter if you wish to be buried in this spirit realm. How can a person, no, a spirit, who has never visited the middle realm say they have lived a satisfying life? In terms of appearance, the Archspirit of Wind, Sylpheria, looked just like a person. As if troubled by my words, the light in her eyes, shining from the helmet, died down a bit. Let's finish up. If I said this much, and she still refused, then that was that. I still had the pride of a man and would not beg. Will you contract with me, or will you refuse? It's about time for me to return. I will. Oh, yes. At Sylpheria's acquiescence, a huge cheer erupted in my heart. Kaya, Archspirit get? No, contracted. The moment the world knew about me being an Arch-summoner, I would be treated with utmost reverence. Winning the lottery wouldn't make me any happier than I was now. But the contractor's mana is insufficient to summon me. If the contractor attempts a forceful summoning, their mana core could explode. What, it's that bad? An unexpected restriction appeared. Since I had never summoned a spirit before, I had no idea how much mana would be consumed. Become strong, so that you can summon me in the middle realm. Understood. Then, will you be my contracted spirit from now on, Sylpheria? In accordance with the covenant made in the beginning, I, Sylpheria, submit myself to the contractor. This I swear in the name of the Holy God. The contract with Sylpheria was fundamentally different from the ones I had made with the lower and intermediate spirits. As Sylpheria made her vow, 2 rays of light descended upon us from the sky, surrounding us in a moment of light before quickly dissipating. So this is a spirit covenant. Now, I remembered, starting from high spirits, there was a different kind of contract called a covenant. Through a covenant, there would be a bond between the summoner and the spirit that could not be broken until the day the summoner drew his or her last breath. My name is Kyre. I recognize thee as my spirit, Sylpheria. I was also compelled to say something more formal. Thank you. I thank the Holy God for allowing my first ever contract with a human to be with you. Feels great, huh? Her words made me strangely joyful. But I have a request. What is it, contractor mine? If it doesn't offend you, could you show me your face just once? That is... Sylpheria hesitated for a moment, looking as troubled as a girl after receiving a proposal. If you really don't want to. Even before I could finish my sentence, Sylpheria slowly removed her helmet with her slender fingers. Oh! Sylpheria's face was exposed under the sun of the glorious spirit realm. The sight of her features made my heart stop. Oh, gods above. I was made to call out the gods in my heart. Then, while I was still frozen solid with a dumb expression pasted on my face, my soul was sucked back out of the spirit realm. Chapter 27. Count Petrin. Ho-ho. Ha. Cuckoo. Kyra, what's wrong with you? After returning from the spirit tower, I sat on my bed and began laughing like a madman, causing Russell to look at me worriedly. It's nothing. I'm fine. Oh. Whether my eyes were closed or open, the only thing I could think of was Sylphiria's face. Should I just devote myself to the spirit realm from now on? She was beautiful. Any meaningless exaggerations would be an insult to her. Her eyes shone like jewels with a luster greater than her transparent, silver armor. In short, her enchanted beauty was like absolutely nothing I had ever seen before. Those silver eyes, I will never forget them. I hadn't even had my first kiss yet, but I doubted even a first kiss would have such an impact on me. Sylphiria was just that beautiful. But how should I summon her? The problem was that my mana was still too weak to summon Sylphiria. I have to be at least the 7th circle to be able to summon her without strain. The 7th circle, at that level, one would be treated as an arcanist of legendary proportions. I was already unsure when I would reach the 6th circle, so how could I wait until the 7th circle? Poke. W, what are you doing? Suddenly, Russell poked my cheek hard. I see, he said, tasting his finger. Tastes completely rotten. TSK. It's such a shame for a young man. Then he clicked his tongue and completely made me out to be a crazy man. I couldn't just take that sitting down. I hugged Russell's waist with a powerful tackle, causing him to make a strange cry of surprise. The heck, why does it feel this good? Russell's thin waist was unbelievable for a man. As if I was hugging a girl, my heart began to beat wildly as soon as we made contact. This feeling is... The moment I tackled him, my head naturally reached Russell's chest, allowing me to feel a very peculiar elasticity. A plushy feeling similar to being embraced by my mom made my whole body titillate. Bam! Gay! A powerful blow from Russell hit my back. Pervert! D. Russell's fierce consecutive blows landed on my body. Cries of pain burst from my mouth without pause. However, like a person who had fallen into water, my hands never let go of Russell's waist. It made me think of those corny movie titles from old classics. I could die happy like this. Asterisk. Time goes by fast. 5 months had already passed since starting Night Academy. In that time, I had attended necessary general classes like Spirit, Magic, and Sparring class, as well as self-study in the library. The study habits that were ingrained in my body from Daehan High were useful here as well. Before I knew it, the first semester of classes was almost at its end. W, what do you want to do with me? Squeaked Tedran like a cornered mouse. I simply smiled at him instead of answering. Do you still wish to live in this empire after doing this to me? I'm the next Duke of Fazine. Those words of future peerage had been thrown at me countless times. I will forgive you. If you stop here, then I will let you off. You base. Ahem. Fearing the pain ahead, Tedran drew it out with meaningless words. All of the goons who had bravely protected him had been picked out by me during sparring and would be beaten to the point of broken bones. Tedran had been destined to be the lucky one today. Instead of fighting back, he tried to convince me. I slowly raised my sword. I am a friend of the Crown Prince. Friend of the Crown Prince? The Crown Prince was a slightly more impactful title than the heir of a dukedom. That temperamental and violent reserve cadet, Crown Prince Poltvarin. He was the son of Emperor Havitrin, the ruler who was respected and loved by the people, the same ruler I had seen at the entrance ceremony. He was born to the imperial concubine rather than the empress, but because he was the eldest son, Poltvarin was granted the Crown Prince title. From what I had heard at the Night Academy, he didn't resemble his father the emperor at all and had a violent and rude temperament. He was rumored to be a haughty crown prince who had gotten everything he wanted from a young age. I had never met him before, but I knew well enough that he was a piece of shit. Oh, that's right. You may just be a commoner who grew up not knowing left from right, but you won't be able to raise your head in front of the Empire's next Imperial Majesty. Tedran gloated with a victorious smile, seeing that my movements had paused from thinking about the Crown Prince. Let's see how long you can last with just those grand and mighty sword skills of yours. In the Night Academy, all cadets are supposed to be equal, but the moment you leave this bubble, you will be forced to see what kind of existence a noble is. He had apparently stored up a lot of resentment, because Tedran's snout was spitting out pure venom now. Did you come to your senses now? Oh, that's right. That's how it should be if you want to live in this empire. Hoo-hoo. Seeing that I had no response to his words, Tedran puffed up triumphantly. Are you done? I said coldly. The cold steel in my voice made Tedran flinch and stiffen. I warned you back then, didn't I? That if you continued to mess around, I would bury you in the training ground. Why, you bastard? Even after seeing his goons have their arms or legs broken at every sparring session, Tedran was still unable to sober up. I decided it was impossible for a human like him with pompousness ingrained deep within the bone. There's a saying like this where I lived before. You should beat up a disobedient dog once every 3 days. Ho! I even smiled evilly as I released intense bloodthirst. Just like how I had taught the other small fries how to lower their heads and tails at the sight of me, I needed to give Tedran the fist of love as well. As I walked towards him with a smile, Tedran inched backwards. If a guy like this is supposed to become one of the pillars of the empire, I guess even this empire will soon meet its end. The young generation was clearly rotten from the inside out due to the crown prince's influence. Even an idiot could predict the empire's future. It was just a spar, but Tedran called for my death and swung his wooden sword at me. I easily parried it away. He's someone who entered with his identity rather than his skills. To enter the Empire's Sky Knight Academy, you had to be at least a 4th Circle Mage, Intermediate Summoner, or a Blade Knight. However, Count to be Alfonso and the other kids from the noble families were clearly lacking the skills. Special admittance was granted to those who could receive a wyvern from their families and show basic skills. That was the case here. Not just Tedran, but Alfonso and Luciella were admitted to the Sky Knight Academy thanks to this special identity admittance. I blocked Tedran's double-handed overhead swing with a single hand on my sword. Then, putting strength into my grip, I leapt with a grunt and moved from the parry into a blow aiming for his torso. Kayak! The sword didn't even make contact yet, but Tedran screamed loudly anyway. In order to avoid crushing his ribs, I turned my sword and hit his right leg. Gah! A cry of agony burst from Tedran's lips. It was surely a terrifying physical pain that he, a ducal heir, had never suffered. It was obvious from the way he embarrassingly peed himself. Next time, I will really bury you, I said quietly. I stared into his eyes that were filled with fear and pain and emphasized my words, all the while putting a dignified bloodthirst into my mana. Kai-io-wea-wak. Ho 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 ho. I want to go home. Yua. Everyone's eyes were turned to my spar with Tedran. Now, their eyes shifted to another spar. Ho ho ho. You should have said that earlier. Ho 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 ho. Hyneth managed to make a perfectly fine Sky Knight cadet want to drop out. The cadet's desperate submission made her smile with satisfaction. My thoughts turned inward. Now it's time for practical training. After the first semester, actual practical Sky Knight training would follow a short 1-week break. We would finally be heading to the Wyvern base outside the Imperial capital. I want to fly. In that beautiful blue sky. Soft cotton candy clouds floated by in the warm spring sky. I wanted to ride the balmy wind. Smiling, I drew in a lungful of breath. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Oh man. After the first semester ended, our 1-week break began. While I was busy sating my curiosity about the continent's history and culture in the library, Hyneth appeared with the same refreshing manga protagonist smile that I had seen the first day we met. Then, heedless of my excuses, she dragged me onto a carriage. Our destination was the villa of Count Kaldane Petrin, the battle maniac who was feared by all as a rabid dog. Whether you believe the rumor that he ripped his own mother's nipples with his infant teeth or not, his notoriety had given birth to such rumors that even I had heard of. Hyneth, what should I do with you? Although the Petrins were a count family of a great empire, because of that prestige/s, they were unlikely to be offered any potential suitors. The Petrins were said to never let go once they bit. Who would offer their own son or daughter to such a vicious and terrifying family? There was no one in the world who wanted their beloved grandson or granddaughter to become a mad dog or battle maniac. Hyneth, yes, or a bunny. Thanks to the arrival of spring, Hyneth was more excited than ever. As soon as classes ended, instead of training or studying, she would spend every waking moment touring the gardens within the Imperial Castle. Even now, she was holding a red flower. At your age, shouldn't there be offers for your hand flying at you from every direction? On this continent, any noble scion could be married off at 15 years. It wasn't unheard of for noble daughters to be betrothed at an even younger age. There are none, said Hyneth, totally unconcerned. You don't intend to marry? A must. I'm the only person who can carry on the family, after all. With whom? With a man, of course. I felt stupid for asking. No one in the Empire had the balls, so how could she possibly get married? Or a bunny, who didn't know? What? Our family has never been on the receiving end of a marriage offer. Then, obviously, a marriage has been concluded only when we Petrons decide the opposite party. Holy, what the heck? Isn't this just a vicious household? And if they refuse? Refuse? Haha, who would refuse? The moment they refuse, that family would become our enemies until the day they come to ruin. There was no point in asking further. I felt I had grasped the true reason why everyone in the Bajran Empire went white whenever they saw a member of the Petron family. The world's biggest pig-headed crazies. That was the best way to describe the Petrons. Lady Hyneth is here. Open the gates. We're already here. This was a place that could make me, a person who feared no one under the sky, tremble. The knight escorting the carriage notified the villa of our arrival at the Tiger's Den. Then, creaking loudly, the mansion gates opened. The carriage continued onwards without a care. So this is a noble family's mansion. Large mansions were situated in the inner city, close to the imperial palace. All nobles with a peerage were able to afford a house in the capital. Maybe they wouldn't have one if they were nobles with land and didn't come off into the capital. But if they had an interest in politics and their families were ambitious, then it was the noble fashion to do your utmost to buy a villa or two in the capital. The villa of a count's family was now standing before my eyes. It was truly large. Even a nouveau riche in Korea wouldn't be able to afford a villa of this size within Seoul. Surrounded by a sturdy, 3-meter-wide wall that looked like a castle's ramparts was the Petron family's mansion. The 3-story antique building featured around 100 windows and was set behind a beautiful green garden that the Petrons had clearly poured a ton of money into. Water spouted from a marvelous fountain set at the center. Ho-ho, it may be smaller than the palace, but it's not bad, isn't it? Not bad? This is already amazing. This was one of the many benefits that you would get once you became a noble. Seeing the dozens of soldiers and knights on guard, I could tell they wouldn't even need a home security system. No matter how nice an automatic security system was, it couldn't beat a duty of knights with 2 eyes and the ability to use mana. I think even Hollywood actors would have a hard time getting a mansion like this, right? Unknown flowers had bloomed in various places in the garden with the advent of spring. After descending from the carriage, Hyneth and I walked through the garden and enjoyed the relaxing leisure afforded to nobles. Huh. Clang clang. Act. Stand up. It's no fun if you collapse with just this. F.A. family head, please stop for now. Any more than this. Family head. The only person who would be called the family head here was Count Petron himself. Oh, looks like father and the knights are doing bet sparring again. Bet sparring? Yes. The loser has to do punishments like wash the dishes after dinner or clean up horse poo. Washing the dishes after dinner. Horse poo. I knew it wasn't a normal family, but this was more than I expected. Knights and lords held positions of such serious authority that a normal commoner couldn't even dare to look at them straight in the eye. I couldn't believe that such lofty people would lower themselves to do tasks that would normally be taken care of by servants. But isn't it unfair to pit the knights against someone who is called the battle maniac? Haha, what's unfair about it? Dad sometimes cleans the horse poo too. I couldn't believe Hyneth's words at all. How could a count of the Empire clean horse poop? It was the same for me when I was learning the sword. When I lost spars, I experienced all sorts of punishments like drawing water, cleaning the castle walls, and doing the laundry. However, Hyneth's nonchalant confession of her past forced me to believe that even a count would clean the stables. After spending time with her, I knew Hyneth wasn't someone to enjoy lying. Strolling through the garden, we walked toward the side of the mansion where the drill hall was located. There I saw quite the spectacle. 10-on-1. In the hall, the head of the Petrons and his knights were fighting for victory with real swords in their hands. To my shock, what should just be a spar was actually a real battle where armor was torn and blood was spilled. I couldn't help but gulp. Then, I met eyes with the man who was arrogantly standing with his bloodied sword. He wasn't very tall, but he had a stubborn, angular chin, big, bright eyes, dark eyebrows, and a hard mouth. His whole body exuded arrogance, no madness. Count Kaldane. The man looking at me after knocking down 10 knights was undoubtedly Hyneth's father, the mad dog of the Bajran Empire, Count Kaldane de Petron. Dad! Hyneth! Hyneth went running to him. In an instant, His face puffed up like leavened bread, and his eyes creased into crescents so quickly that I could hardly believe it. Stretching out his arms wide, he brought his already grown-up daughter, Hyneth, into his embrace. "Daddy, I wanted to see you." "Haha, kiddo, this father of yours also wanted to see you so badly that he couldn't sleep at night." Even a cuckoo wouldn't dote this much on its child. Kaldane flung his count's dignity far away and carried out a scene of marvelous familial love right in front of all the knights. The love overflowing from them was going off in all directions. Everyone is strong. The spar had been so outrageous that there were huge divots in the training ground of the Petrin mansion. The knights with small wounds all over their bodies got up one by one. Each one of them emitted a robust energy. That energy wasn't mana, but a terrifying strength that even Hyneth could emit to some extent. It was a patented article of the ass-kicking Marine Corps, a little something called guts. "Are you the one named Kyre?" After their show of affection ended, Count Kaldane looked towards me. "It is an honor to meet you. I am Kyre, a Sky Knight cadet." This was the father of someone who I consider my little sis. I couldn't be careless in my actions. "Nice meeting you. Then, shall we do a proper greeting now?" "Proper?" Nodding, Count Kaldane said something I couldn't quite understand. "Dad, be gentle. Don't hurt Aura Bunny. You brat, you should be worrying about your dad, but instead, you worry about your Aura Bunny? If it were you, would you worry about yourself?" I know. Since this is someone our Hyneth sees as an elder brother, I will take care." The two of them completely left me out of the loop. He's truly exceptional. This was the family of an empire's count. In short, a family of high rank, even among those high and mighty nobles. However, he didn't blame Hyneth for treating a commoner like me like an elder brother. The Count family of Petrins was really unique. "Is that fellow your sword?" "Huh? Yes." At my hip wasn't the steel sword given to trainees, but the sword that I had stolen from a knight of the Fury Viscount. It looks like a sword used by those southern knights. Seeing that the blade is thick and the balance is good, it looks like a sword exclusively used by the knights of Dapus Kingdom. Amazing! As if wanting to confirm that he was from a family that was crazy about swords, Count Kaldane traced my sword, which was completely bare of decoration or markings, all the way to the Dapus Kingdom. "Draw it." "Excuse me," I said, not understanding the Count's strange words. "Hyneth, did you not tell him about our family's way of greeting guests?" "What's the point in telling him? You were going to have a round with him anyway." "A round? A completely unprepared round with a mad dog, Count Kaldane? 10 gold that the young lad gets crushed in 3 moves. Nonsense. He's still a Sky Knight cadet in name, so he should survive at least 5. 10 gold on 5 moves for me. All right, everyone, place your stakes." What the heck are they doing? The Petrin Knights, I remembered from meeting them in front of the inner castle, were men who had exuded a knight's courteous chivalry. Those same knights were now acting no different from mercenaries. Why? Not happy that I am yielding the first move? And no, that's not it. Jeez, I'm gonna go crazy. When we first got here, I had gloated to myself in anticipation of the much heard of noble etiquette and formal dinner, all while thinking that I would finally get some proper treatment now. Well, I guess that's just my lot in life. Noble treatment, my ass. In any case, this spar with the Count was unavoidable. The sound of metal rang out as I decisively drew my sword. "Let's do it, Mr. Mad Dog." As soon as I raised my sword, all my random thoughts disappeared. I was also a Blade Knight in name. I wouldn't be so stupid as to refuse an opportunity like this. "Oh, vigor is flowing from your blade. I will face you seriously." After saying that, a scary amount of blue mana began to ripple from the bastard's sword in the Count's hand. I won't hold back. I drew swelling mana from my mana core and poured plenty of it into my sword. Here I go. As per Petrin tradition, Count Kaldane was waiting for my first move. I swung an immensely powerful blow toward his head. Good. This is the right feeling, I thought, putting all my accumulated stress into that one blow. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Clang. Oop. The electrifying force ran from the blade to my palm. Mana, physical strength, speed, they're all amazing. In the Knight Academy, none of my peers were my match. However, the Count's sword took my sword with ease and struck back like a venomous snake. There was no time for me to be careless. It was a match under the guise of a spar, but the Count moved as if he had met his sworn enemy. The sword that was attacking my head suddenly made a huge change in trajectory and slipped through the wind towards my waist. It's fluid as well as strong. From the outside, the Count's sword didn't seem all that strong. But whenever we clashed with the ringing of steel, my palms would burn from the force of the blow. Huh, this friend, you're quite good. After blocking around 10 blows, Count Kaldane retreated around 5 meters and guffawed with delight. Or a bunny. You're so cool. Yoa, this fellow is actually pretty good. It didn't even seem like the boss went easy on him, but he's already blocked 10 times. Sigh, seems like I can't even call myself a formal knight anymore. From behind me, I heard Hyneth's encouragement and the disbelieving words of the knights. Try receiving this sword as well. After seeing me block his sword without faltering even a little bit, the Count overflowed with a vigor that said he wanted to end this. Is this the vision sword art of the Petron family? Noble warrior families with long histories possess sword arts unique to them. Among those families, the Petron family of Counts was one of the best. Around the Count's sword shimmered a haze of an intangible energy. His sword was now filled with his domineering energy, as well as blue mana. I couldn't be careless, so I firmly readied myself with mana and awaited the Count's sword. Ah, he grunted, his sword closing the distance within the blink of an eye. Whoa, there was definitely only one sword coming towards me, but in my eyes, there were 5 or 6. Snake Phantom, someone burst out in surprise. Illusionary sword, but they all looked too real to be called illusions. While I was thinking, the Count's sword clashed into mine. I parried the first sword rushing towards me, then the second one that was aiming for my heart. The clashing of steel rang out. They're all real. They weren't illusionary swords. The Count's profound sword art was able to make something that was more than just an illusion. Clang! My sword moved on instinct and rebounded from the third sword. In that moment, I saw surprise in the Count's eyes. Arg! Clang! With all my strength, I blocked the fourth sword coming towards my stomach. For close calls had passed by in an instant. Unable to resist the strength of the Count's blow, my sword flew out of my hand. And then, the Count's sharp sword lay quietly in my throat. I lost. This was my first defeat after coming to the Callian continent. I had done my best without letting down my guard, but I still lost. Of course, if I had used magic or spirits, the result would have been different, but a person only had one life. A loss was a loss. Then, the Count addressed me with a quiet voice. Young man, who are you? My name is Kyr. Without even thinking about removing the sword hovering in my throat, the Count made a thoughtful sound. To block 4 illusionary swords from me, a master, even after fighting you. I can't believe it. How is that possible at your age? The usually jovial face of Count Kaldane was now completely serious. He gave off the feeling of a well-worn sword. A master. I was surprised again. The first person to defeat me was a master. As someone who had only matched swords with blade knights at most, the fact that I was almost able to go head-to-head with a master felt like a dream. Good. If it's someone with skills like yours, then I can feel assured in trusting our Hyneth to you. Voot? Entrust? Entrust what? Kaldane suddenly threw me a hot potato. Whoa, you're amazing, kid. To block our family head's blows like that. What are you all doing? A new friend has come. It's our family's tradition to give them a magnificent welcome. Call the butler. Tell him that tonight. We're drinking till we fall, so he should prepare plenty of food and drink. As you command. Even before I could come to my senses, the knights cheered loudly at Count Kaldan's hearty announcement. Is this really a Count family of an empire? I looked around with blank eyes. The Petron household seemed more like a mercenary group or a rabble of bandits. Sigh. I couldn't help but let out a low sigh. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Fool. Drink. Kuahaha. My dear beer, I was waiting for you. To the Empire's peace and the Petron family, cheers. Cheers. So you're saying the very first ancestor of the Petrons, who were called vassals of the Empire, was actually a mercenary. I was finally able to understand the reason why the master of the Petron family of counts and his knights were so beyond common sense. The first family head, who had played an important role in the Empire's founding, had been the leader of a mercenary group that was famous for its strength in the continent. That mercenary's blood was flowing strong in the Petrons today. Much time had passed since then, but they didn't lose the vigor of their ancestor and maintained the same spirit. Or a bunny, please have a drink, said Hyneth, a full recipient of that blood. Hyneth was the one who made me fully realize that a girl's face wasn't all there was to them. After filling up a large silver cup with beer, Hyneth handed it to me with a pure smile. Yes, let us drink. So what about this and that? As long as I was sitting here with these joyful people who had opened their hearts to me, this place was heaven. Glasses clashed cheerfully. Gulp, gulp. I poured the refreshing beer down my throat. It's killer. The beer was so cold, it even had small pieces of ice in it. The beer taken straight from a magic storehouse tasted drop-dead delicious. On top of that, Hyneth handed me a fork of smoked sausage, offering me her heartwarming service. It was like I was in one of those hostess bars that adults enjoyed. Kyra, what do you think? Asked Count Caldane out of the blue, right after chugging down some beer. What do you mean, sir? I looked at the time bomb of a count, who was clutching his beer. What do you think I mean? Instead of being a Sky Knight without affiliation in the Empire, come to our family. We already intended on getting another wyvern, so I will give it to you. A wyvern. A single wyvern cost hundreds of thousands of gold. After meeting me for the first time today, Count Caldane said he would distribute such a costly expense to me. Wowie. Congrats, kid. Arg, how unfair. I got mine after working to the bone for 10 years. At the Count's words, the knights, most of whom were Sky Knights, burst into cheers and congratulated me. I am thankful for your intent, but I respectfully decline. Decline? Yes. I didn't even need to think. Instead of living as a Sky Knight bound to the Count, I would rather buy one on my own with money. I had no interest in anything that would fetter my free spirit. Maybe you don't know, but for a commoner these days, getting a wyvern from the Empire and becoming a Sky Knight is more difficult than picking a star from the sky, no matter how good your skills are. Still, I refuse. Is it because of me or the family? And my adamant refusal, the Count frowned slightly. Not at all, sir. Then, I do not like having anyone above me as my boss, even if that person is the Emperor. As my words fell, a deadly silence descended on the dining table. Coldness began to coalesce in the knight's eyes. I had, after all, mentioned the Emperor himself. However, I could not lie to myself. I didn't like what I didn't like. Do you know that your words could be taken as treason? Asked Count Caldane with a hard voice. I am aware. However, I simply said what was in my heart. I wasn't scared, even though the Count in front of me was a blade master. Even if I had to become mortal enemies with this empire, I wanted to live saying what I wanted. Silence continued to reign. Count Caldane looked at me with a troubled gaze. Ha 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 ha. Then he suddenly burst out into raucous laughter. All right, good, that's right. A man should have such vigor. However, keep in mind that if you had said such a thing to a budge-ran noble other than me, that would be the day you meet your coffin. You are also manly, I thought with a little relief. I like you, sir. I like you too, kid. There is no need for many words in a conversation between two men, just like now. I raised my glass high. To the patrons. To us, cried out the knights in response to my cheer. Drink, my knights. Tonight, the Lord of Fate, Romero, and the Goddess of Abundance and Festivities, Sapphire, are with us. Make a toast for the passion burning bright in your hearts, the vigor running deep in your cups, and the knight's lofty ideals in your minds. Everyone cheers. Cheers. Their actions were like mercenaries, but underneath, the Count household of Petrons were knights at heart. Their lively, dynamic energy was infectious. Feels great. A thought occurred to me just then. I decided that tonight, I would drink until I dropped here in the house of the Petrons, where true men were gathered. I knew I wanted to value this relationship with them. Chapter 28, Kerphone Covert. Translator, Lay. Kyuk. Dude, don't you ever get bored? At the Petrons' place, I drank until I blacked out for the first time in my life. After downing cup after cup, the sun seemed on the verge of coming up, and it was then that I lost consciousness. Then I slept the day away like a log, and after waking up, I suffered from a terrible hangover. But the other knights, including the Count, were able to spend a lively day full of sparring even after drinking so much. It was a special privilege afforded to people who could control mana. Apparently, you could use mana to protect your stomach and forcibly erase your intoxication. However, I didn't even know that, and was forced to realize the frightening power of alcohol with my entire body. Does he like that guy, Shuriel, so much? After almost dying and coming back to the world of the living, I returned to the dorm. The other kids of noble families were mostly staying at villas in the capital or with their friends. Only Russell, who had nowhere else to go, was standing at the window of the dorm room, summoning Shuriel and playing with it. This guy, he's crying. Russell didn't even register that I had come in and kept playing with Shuriel. Tears fell from his eyes to the ground. Dad, Mom, His usually neutral voice had disappeared and had turned thin and high-pitched, like a girl. Brat, so you're a pup who wants to see his parents. To be honest, I felt the same. Because I couldn't return to the earth or do anything about it, I was living to my utmost here, but I yearned to see my parents and friends. I will avenge you, even if I must sell my soul to the devil. Revenge. But Russell's yearning suddenly turned to vengeance with gritted teeth. I knew there was probably a situation he couldn't tell me, but I didn't know it was this much of a bitter grudge. He wouldn't look a bit out of place as the main character in a story. Who is it? Russell cried, finally sensing my presence and whipping his head around. Huh, it's me, friend, I said, making an expression like nothing was wrong in order to avoid awkwardness. Kay Kyer, said Russell, his voice a little muffled as he quickly wiped his tears with his sleeve. The sun is too bright, huh? I acted like I didn't see his tears and said something irrelevant. Yeah. Understanding my intent, Russell nodded. Russell, I pushed my face toward his feminine features. What are you doing? You? Whenever I called him, Russell looked very guarded. I spoke with a furtive voice and reached for his shoulder. As I did so, Russell's clear, gentle silver eyes trembled. Why is he always so tense when I come close? I never took my jokes too far, but this brat always put his guard up when I got near him. I gripped his thin and soft, girly shoulders. Do you really not have a little sister? I said quietly. Bam! Russell's fist landed in my stomach. Pervert. Like always, he was ready with his favorite word for me. Brat, don't be sad. If you cry, I'm sad too. Following the pervert accusation, Russell's expression loosened up. Now I could relax. After sharing a room with him for several months, we had grown much closer. I didn't know how much longer this would last, but until my fate with him was over, I wanted to support him like this. I don't know when, but at some point, I started wanting to protect a certain guy. That guy's name was my roommate, Russell. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Shall we try summoning a spirit? Tomorrow, we would be heading out for Sky Knight practical training. I wanted to try summoning the spirits as an emergency measure before we set off. For that purpose, I headed to the forest around the Summoner's Tower. If Count Capuan knew, he'd go nuts. Count Capuan had sent me to the spirit realm through the spirit summoning magic circle. While I was still in a state of complete shock from seeing Sylphiria's face, I was brought back to the middle realm, where Count Capuan asked me about the spirits. At that time, I told him I couldn't make any contracts, only that I was thankful that he had allowed me to see a bunch of spirits. A card hidden up my sleeve will surely save my life. I was still someone who hadn't reached the stage of absolute power. I was a fifth circle mage, swordsman, and summoner, but I was well aware that it wasn't enough. It's probably fine to summon an intermediate spirit instead of a lower one, right? This was my first attempt, but I could currently summon every element of lower and intermediate spirit, as well as the high wind spirit under Sylphiria's level, Jinn. I didn't personally make a contract with a high spirit, but because I had made a contract with an archspirit, I could summon high spirits of the same element with the force of my will. I should probably summon Shuriel, yeah? I was more drawn to wind spirits than the others. Moreover, wind spirits were the most important spirits for a Sky Knight who would act in the sky. Making my decision, I closed my eyes and brought the image of my contracted Shuriel to mind. Summon Shuriel. Shuriel, an eagle of wind. In response to my words, I felt a powerful energy gathering in the air, and wind began to blow around me. Oh, yes. Then, I broke out in a cheer upon seeing Shuriel, who was flapping its transparent wings and floating in the air. If I could distract an enemy with a spirit, land a critical hit with magic, and then finish the job with my sword, who could defeat me then? An imaginary battle was drawn in my head. In a one-on-one fight, I would probably be undefeatable. No matter how much of a master or seven-circle mage you were, it would be possible to block a spirit's rapid attacks, magic's immense offensive power, and the clean strikes of swordsmen on top of that all on your own. Fly, Shuriel, all the way over there. With a low cry that only I could hear, Shuriel flew like a rocket into the direction I had pointed at. Wow! Shuriel's movement speed was so fast that it couldn't be traced with the human eye. It does take quite a lot of mana. My mana core was much greater than other people's, but as Shuriel flitted off, I felt mana getting sucked out. In particular, because Shuriel had flown off so far I could barely see it, my mana was drained with sudden speed. Seems to consume more mana depending on the distance. If summoners weren't limited by their mana, they would probably be the strongest attackers. However, compared to knights or mages, summoners had the most fragile mana. They would definitely be limited in distance and time during a battle in the sky. I should thank Master. Those same limitations weren't as restrictive for me. Thanks to Master Bumdaff's mana breathing technique, I could display a far greater strength than other summoners. Should I try using spirit magic as well? Summoning a spirit had another advantage. Even if you weren't a mage, you could use magic. However, a wind spirit could only use wind magic, water spirits could use water magic, etc. The summoner's affinity has to be high in order to use magic freely, right? I had learned quite a lot about spirits in class. The information was pretty useful. Just then, I suddenly heard the flapping of wings. A wyvern. In the sky was a wyvern flying over from the Imperial Palace. Why is it so small? It was a black wyvern, whose body gleamed with black luster. But it was around half the size of the huge wyverns I had seen before. Ruer. The wyvern that had suddenly appeared from the Imperial Palace was about to crash into the Forest of Spirits, where I was. Oi, that brat. Then I saw him, the little prince who'd gotten a spanking from me. Wearing a flustered expression, Ration was gripping the reins atop the struggling wyvern. This kid, it was obviously a dangerous situation. Shuriel, help the wyvern. The only thing that occurred to me in this pressing situation was to use my summoned spirit. At my cry, Shuriel, who had flown far away, flew straight to the wyvern like a ray of light. The moment Shuriel supported the crashing wyvern that had lost its balance, mana drained from me rapidly. Taking physical form to support the wyvern exceeded its limit, increasing the drain on my mana. Flap, flap, flap. Arg, you little brat. You're getting a spanking now. Shuriel righted the wyvern's balance with wind power and dragged the wyvern to the clearing in the forest where I was standing. Yuwawa. Clearly frightened, Ration burst out into tears. And the wyvern, which was still huge despite me calling it small, landed on the ground with a weighty thump. As soon as the wyvern hit ground, Shuriel returned to the spirit realm on its own. It had definitely consumed a lot of its strength. I ran forward. He may be a prince of Bajran, but he was still a kid. Worrying about whether he was hurt or not came first. Thanks to Shuriel doing its best, the black wyvern was able to land safely, and I could finally let out a relieved breath. It's still a baby? The black wyvern looked as young as Ration himself. Blinking its black eyes, the creature warily stared at me as I ran forward. Kiddo, are you okay? I called out to Ration, who was crying while sitting on the saddle atop the wyvern. Raising his head to my voice, Ration wailed so loudly that it shook the forest. Hyung, Rothier, asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. So you're saying, when members of the Imperial family become 10, they unconditionally receive a black wyvern. And this guy named Atero is yours. Hyung. He's handsome, right? He's only 2, but understands words well, too. So it's true that wyverns have to be over 4 years old to be full-grown. I was a Sky Knight cadet, but I still didn't know much about wyverns. I heard that we would start getting close to wyverns from the practical training starting tomorrow. As inexperienced as I was, seeing the baby black wyvern in front of me with its black luster aroused greed in me. But who gave you permission? He doesn't look ready to fly yet. He was big, but Datero still had a lot of growing to do. It was too dangerous for a prince who could become the next emperor to fly on him. That is... Nona was gone, so I ordered the attendants. The kiddo lowered his head and confessed his sins. Bam! I lightly smacked his head. How sad do you think your father and mother would be if you got into an accident like that? At over 10 years old, you should know the value of life. Ration, do you still see yourself as a kid? I would have gotten mad even if it was a kid who had nothing to do with me, but because he was a kid I knew, I got even madder. I'm sorry, Hyung. I won't do it again. But Datero can fly well, you know? He even flew with me not too long ago. Though he was a prince, Ration had already recognized me as his Hyung. Disheartened by my words, he gave an excuse with a trembling voice. Not too long ago? Now that I think of it, isn't it suspicious? Datero was still a baby, but he was still more than big enough to fly with an adult on his back. These guys. At that moment, I saw something sparkle in Datero's right wing pit. Who did something like this? A black piece of metal was lodged in the wyvern's black hide. The sharp edges had pierced the armpit under the wing, pushed so deeply inside that it was able to damage the uniquely sturdy black wyvern hide, which was said to be able to deflect swords. Whenever Datero flapped his wings, the object pierced deeper inside and caused intense pain. Unable to fly properly due to the pain, the wyvern had crashed. Conspiracy. I could only think of one thing. The crown prince is born from the queen, but this kid was born from the belly of the empress, the legal wife. It's definitely possible. Any person with a working brain could smell the conspiracy afoot. It could be caused by a power struggle within the imperial palace, something I'd seen often in movies or books. No, it was definitely caused by something like that. Otherwise, who would play with a young child's life like this? Ration. Brother. Ration looked at me with round eyes. It was obvious that this kid with baby fat still on his cheeks didn't know a thing. In the future, don't do these kinds of dangerous flights. And be careful. I couldn't tell the kid to watch out for his life and increase his escort. To this kid, the world was still full of wonders. I didn't want to rob this kid of his pure world. Fate is also an illness. I wanted to help, but there was a limit to what I could do. And to say it rationally, even if the kid died, it was his fate as a kid who was born a prince. Got it, elder brother. Kiddo. I patted the kid's head as he smiled brightly. If the Imperial Knights were to see, I would be branded on the spot with treason against the Imperial family, but I wasn't scared. Right now, Ration was just a cute kid I knew. Your Highness. Your Imperial Highness. Just then, cries calling for the prince came from the distance. It's the Imperial Knights. As long as they had eyes, they would also be able to see what kind of plot Ration had suffered. I heard the footsteps of the Imperial Knights as they came closer to the forest. I'll see you later, kiddo. Are you going? Yeah, I wanted to play longer with you, complained Ration with his eyes full of sadness. Then grow up quickly. Next time, when I become a Sky Knight, let's fly together in the sky. Really, this elder brother of yours doesn't lie. All right, make sure to keep that promise. Okay, elder brother Kyre. Got it. Then, watch your health. Because I could feel that the knights had drawn close, I used Mana's Step to hide within the forest. It didn't matter if I was found, but there was no need to complicate things. But where did the Imperial Princess go, leaving such a young brother behind? Princess Aegis had clearly cared deeply for her younger brother. She wasn't stupid enough to let Ration fly off like that. It's already late afternoon. After just one night, the much-anticipated Sky Knight practical training would begin. Washed by the rays of the afternoon sun, filtered by the trees, I walked through the forest. From now on, such a peaceful time wouldn't come for a while. There's a Sky Knight base in a place like this? After 2 hours of horseback from the capital, we arrived at a mountain around 300 meters above sea level. The mountain had a gentle slope and took up a fairly large area. The Sky Knight Imperial Guard protecting the capital from short distance, and other Sky Knights are here. Wearing our uniforms, the cadets gathered early in the morning and departed on prepared horses. After passing through the capital, we galloped straight here. Students, this is Kerphone Covert, where you will stay for 2 months. 53 black wyverns, the pride of our empire, as well as around 100 regular wyverns are on standby here in order to protect the capital. Several instructors had followed us here, including Viscount Atwan, Count Capuan, and Viscount Bane, who were all Sky Knights themselves. It's a perfect fortress. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to call Kerphone Covert the heart that protected the entire empire. At the entrance stood a thick stone wall, and I could see dozens of places that looked like trenches all over the mountain. Each wyvern requires a team of around 10 soldiers, so just counting it up, it's at least 1,500 people. And then there's another few thousand garrison here. Wow, it's amazing. Even a single glance could tell you that Kerphone was perfectly equipped for defense. It made my heart pound the moment we got close. Identify yourselves. In order to enter the covert, you had to go through the stone wall first. Hundreds of soldiers were standing watch on the wall with arrows, spears, and swords. They're even using magic defense arrays. I felt traces of mana from the wall, coming from magic defense arrays that were used in special fortifications. The first-year Sky Knight cadets are here for practical training. We are the instructors. Please pass over your identification. They should know the faces of the instructors, but the knight in charge asked for identification with an appearance that meant business. He was standing in front of the wall with several dozen soldiers. It showed how much importance Budge Ran placed on this place. It has been confirmed. Please come in. After checking the documents passed over by the highest-ranked instructor, Count Capuan, the knight gave us permission to enter. As we walked towards the wall with our horses, the knight made a fist and shook it in the air. Only then did the thick fortress gate open with a loud grinding of stone. Hiya! The instructors hurried their horses inside. The other cadets, whose hearts were probably racing as much as mine, rushed to follow them. Finally, last night, I had a hard time sleeping because of my excitement. I was at the tail end of the line and followed everyone through the gate. Ah, wow, gasp. The cadets who had entered through the gate stopped their horses to exclaim with admiration as they blankly stared at the scene before them. Why are they like this, so lame? Snorting at the cadets who had stopped at the front of the line, I threaded my horse through the throng and looked ahead. Whoa. In the end, I also couldn't help but cry out. Those are all wyverns. A huge valley awaited us beyond the gate. In the valley were an incredible number of wyverns. That's insane. Countless wyverns were lying down, flapping their wings, getting cared for by people, or preparing to fly. With large buildings that looked like their houses behind them, the wyverns were enjoying their luxurious daily lives like millionaires at their country homes. A gold wyvern. There's even a wyvern unique to Lavender here. Impressive. It's really impressive. I wasn't the only one getting emotional. Everyone here were cadets who dreamed of becoming Sky Knights. The little voice inside their heads that whispered that one of those wyverns on the valley could become theirs made everyone very excited. How much money is this? 1 wyvern, 2 wyverns, There's too many to count. Each one cost at least 200,000 gold a pop, and there were 150 of them. In terms of money, I was looking at an astronomical sum. Ho. I only need 1. As long as it's black, I just need 1. As soon as you owned a wyvern, you would be promoted to noble status. Now I was half a step closer to my paradise. The next level, becoming a noble, was waiting for me. Move along, everyone. The instructors hastened the cadets, who were all standing with their jaws open. We took the horses to one side of the valley, where many large 3-story buildings stood. They were probably the dormitories where the cadets would be staying for 2 months. They must be here. Those guys. As we hustled the horses onwards, 2 people came to mind. Countess Irene, the apostle of the azure skies, and that one guy named Rod. Hello. Countess Irene, I'm here to keep my promise with you. She had told me to become a Sky Knight cadet and prove my innocence. Her goddess-like appearance was etched in my mind. In particular, her innocent beauty that exuded a magical charm. Chapter 29, Meeting Him. Wyverns have a sensitive temperament, and the Sky Knights, who own wyverns, are barons at the very least. Bear in mind that they will request a battle to the death to anyone who injures their wyvern, so watch your actions. The practical training quarters were as top quality as the dorms in the capital. Once we reached them, Viscount Awan laid down some cautionary words. Then is it all right if we go look around without bothering the wyverns? Of course. As long as you keep in mind that causing a scene will earn you a silent arrow to the throat, there shouldn't be any issues. As expected of the simple Viscount Awan, even his response was masterful in its bluntness. Dismissed. From tomorrow on, you will be personally trained by enlisted Sky Knights. As you command, cried out the practical training cadets. Everyone's faces were flushed, as if their excitement hadn't died down yet. So in order to get a wyvern from a noble family, you have to get training here, huh? There were around 300 wyverns operating in the Empire's capital. Roughly 150 were stationed here, and the rest were affiliated with individual lords. But whether you got one from a lord or from the Empire, you could only acquire a wyvern if you graduated from Sky Knight Academy first. No matter what kind of noble you were, it was Empire law that you could not formally own a wyvern before becoming a Sky Knight. This was probably the greatest measure the Empire could take to prevent their valuable wyverns from going to unskilled individuals. Russell, aren't you surprised? Not really. What a special guy. A person who wanted to become a Sky Knight for revenge showed no reaction to seeing over 100 wyverns. Want to go out? No thanks. I'll see plenty tomorrow. I want to rest. Seriously, why is a guy like this? Even though I felt the distance between us had shrunk a lot, at times like this, Russell really felt like a guy from a faraway land. Saying he was tired, he went off into his assigned quarters. Hyneth, do you want to go look outside? No. A place without gardens or flowers is Hyneth. A girl with only flowers and gardens in her head shook her head with a powerless voice. Yoa, this is why a person has to choose their friends well. Thanks to Hyneth, I was branded a loser and didn't have any other friends. The others were already going out in groups of 3 or 4, but I was forced to wail about my deep loneliness. All right, since when have I had friends? I wasn't one to get down by something like this. If you don't have teeth, then use your gums, and if you don't have gums, then use your dentures. That was the kind of mentality Kang Hyuk possessed. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. It's huge. Seeing the scale of the covert from the wall versus seeing it in the flesh was a world of difference. Running through the hangars for the wyvern's exclusive use was a long, for lane wide road. Squeal, squeal, ga, ba-ea. They're eating all of that. It wasn't just one or two. Over 100 pigs, sheep, and cows were transported into the covert on dozens of carriages. How's the quality of the sheep today? They are top-grade sheep raised on the Sylve Plains. Really? Then give me one of those today. As the carriages loaded with foodstuffs passed by, people who were knight rank came out of the wyvern barracks and ordered sheep, pigs, and cows. Exactly how much do they eat every day? Wyverns are like moving mountains. I thought they would have to eat at least one pig per day to maintain their bulk. Ba-ea-ea. The selected sheep was unloaded from the carriage, then dragged by the soldiers attending the wyvern and taken into the huge hangars. Crunch. Do they eat it whole? The bloody sounds of the sheep's bones getting crunched could be heard even from outside the barracks. They've got it good. It's no different from a pampered pooch living in a wealthy household. As long as there weren't any wars, this place was wyvern heaven. After finishing its meal, the wyvern with blood still on its jaws came outside. The next moment, there were people rushing to wipe the blood on its face with towels. The scene made you wonder who the master was. If you take off in one go, it will be damn cool. I had only seen wyverns a few times, but the more I saw them, the deeper my awe grew. Each wyvern boasted a sleek hide according to the characteristics of each race. These were beasts that could block most spells and most physical attacks, like arrows. They possessed the strength to crush a knight's armor with their steel-like claws. I could understand why people said that a wyvern's appearance could rewrite the history of a war. Black wyverns. While walking along, I arrived at a place that was obviously different from the rest of the covert. The wyvern quarters here were made with black stones, and the yard in front of each barrack was a little larger. I could immediately tell that the wyverns here received better treatment. Then I saw it, a black wyvern gleaming like the night sky. This race, the treasure of the Bajran Empire, was enjoying the warm sunshine with its huge wings outstretched. Hashais, don't you get bored of it? Do you really have to put me through this every time you eat? This voice is... From the wyvern's back came a man's familiar voice. As he busily scratched the black wyvern's itchy spots with a large steel rake, the man appeared from the wyvern's left wing. So I get to meet Rothalo here. Rothalo, the Sky Knight of the Imperial Guard I had met at Elmar's rest house and had boasted he would buy me a drink if I got admitted, was sweating intensely as he scratched his wyvern. The appearance of an Empire's top elite was nowhere to be found, replaced by a pitiful scullery maid. Heedless of Rothalo's complaining, the black wyvern named Hashais simply growled with pleasure. Oi, because of you, I can't find romance. Do I have to do this kind of thing every day at my age? Pausing with the rake, Rothalo shouted with pent-up anger. Flap, flap, flap. As if saying he didn't want to hear it, Hashais flapped his ponderous wings. Yuwa, save me. The light wing strokes of the wyvern from wings almost 10 meters long made Rothalo, who had been on top, scream as he flew into the sky. Even so, Rothalo had the strong willpower to not let go of his steel rake. With a composure that didn't match his screaming, Rothalo spun a few times in the air and lightly landed on his feet. Grah, today, you're dead so I can live. As if seriously enraged, Rothalo discarded his face as a Sky Knight and ran toward his wyvern. While running, he met eyes with me, who was watching his pathetic antics. It's been a while, Sir Rothalo. Hey, Kyre? Ha ha ha. You got into Sky Knight Academy? You didn't let down my expectations, said Rothalo, still remembering my name. A bright smile bloomed on his cynical face. But, sir, do you have to do this every day if you become a Sky Knight? It didn't matter if the profession was the most honorable in the world. I got the foreboding that you would even have to clean up wyvern mega poop, so I had to ask. Aha, this is a sign of affection. Because if you can't feel a bond with your wyvern during flight, that translates directly into danger. Rothalo scratched his head, smiling awkwardly. However, he didn't look embarrassed. Even as he spoke, he was looking at his black wyvern, Hashais, with a loving gaze. Are you a summoner, sir? HM? How did you know? Is this what a spirit smells like? Until just recently, I hadn't been able to tell, but after making a contract with multiple spirits, I could instinctively pick out a spirit scent. I could feel the traces of a wind spirit from Rothalo. It will be difficult to become the master of a black wyvern as a knight, right? That's true. That's one of the advantages of being a summoner. Rothalo's smile could have come off as arrogant, but it didn't because I knew his character. May I ride once? Looking at the black wyvern's onyx wings, I couldn't help but think of flying, my most anticipated dream. Not yet. All wyverns, including black wyverns, must receive permission to fly from control. Permission to fly? Well, I guess that's to be expected. If you took a wyvern and defected, the Empire would take an enormous loss, so they probably kept a thorough watch on everyone. But don't worry. It looks like you've come for your first year practical training. You'll be able to fly very soon. To the point of bitter regret at that. Rothello's words hinted at some kind of evil plot, like he knew a secret I didn't. You didn't forget your promise, right? Promise? Of course not. A big glass to celebrate your admittance. Look forward to it, Kyre. Rodolo was leagues apart from those nobles who only had shit for brains. He was a man I wanted to open my heart to and develop a good relationship with. I'll believe in your promise. Are you looking around the covert? Yes. Huh. I was like that too. The first time I saw this place, my heart was racing so much I thought I would faint. So Rodolo felt it too. It was a strange feeling that only another Sky Knight could understand. It seems your work is not finished, so I will take my leave. All right, sorry about that. I would have wanted to take you around, but this guy... Rodolo looked helplessly at Hashais, who was waiting with its right wing stretched towards him. A fully grown wyvern should have the intelligence of a child. Not all monsters were stupid. Even orcs were capable of making crude arrows or spears and lived in social groups. Among monsters, wyverns were top of the class. If they really were stupid, they wouldn't be called wyverns, but chicken heads. All right, everywhere else is fine, but don't go to the building next to the lake over there. Why? Just don't. You will learn the reason later, but on a day like this, just don't go. You don't want the bad luck to infect you from your first day here. Bad luck? What the heck is he talking about? Rodolo said something I couldn't understand, but he refused to say more. Then, I will see you next time, sir. All right. Enjoy your tour, Kyre. At some point, Rodolo had crawled back onto his wyvern's right wing and was hard at work scratching it. Contrary to his prickly words, his face was overflowing with joy, and the look in his eyes was as if he was watching a woman he loved. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Hey, you guys, you sure have it rich. For me, someone coming from a place where humans reigned at the very top, Kerphone Covert was a unique place. Here, wyverns were afforded every luxury. After finishing their meals, 10 or so wyverns went out to the lake and were playing in the water. It was like some rich kids eating out at a specialty restaurant in Gangnam and then going to a hotel pool to play. Tien. Gangnam is a really expensive, upscale district in Korea. I wonder what kind of place is this? Telling someone to not press the red button was a surefire way to ignite their curiosity. I decisively ignored Rothello's warning and approached the building on the lakeside. It looks like a wyvern quarter, but there are no people here. Other wyverns had at least 10 attendants at their beck and call, but this wyvern quarter was completely silent. It was located quite far from the other wyvern quarters. There's definitely a wyvern inside. My senses became more sensitive as my mana grew. I could feel a wyvern's huge presence inside the building. Blood and fishy smells flowed into the yard, which was overgrown with weeds. A horrifying energy loomed in the air. Did it bite someone? Various thoughts floated through my mind, but my curiosity unwittingly deepened. Should I go inside? Unlike the other wyverns, who received noble treatment, the wyvern here was treated almost like a piece of waste. There had to be special circumstances at play. That's right, what's there to fear? The instructors didn't even say to avoid this place. I was a little worried about Rothello's warning, but I couldn't overcome my vigorous curiosity. Steeling myself, I walked towards the closed-off wyvern quarter. There's a side door there. The wyvern quarters were built with hinged doors on both ends, like airports in modern times. I saw a small side door for humans on one side. Gulp. Despite my bravado, my body seemed to have tensed up, and I gulped with nervousness. What's with this coldness? As I walked step by step, I felt a cold energy. Before I knew it, I was already standing in front of the side door. I slowly grabbed the handle and opened the door. The smell of blood, so intense it made me gag, rushed out from the opening of the door. I hesitated for a moment. However, because I believe in my skills, I carefully moved inside. The moment I stepped in, a burning gaze from two huge crimson pupils shot down on me. Be black wyvern. Sunlight shone in from the door I had opened, illuminating a black wyvern bigger than any I had seen so far. Golden stripes. More surprisingly, the black wyvern's body was marked with several golden stripes. So beautiful. As if painted with gold, The golden markings shone even in the dim light. The wyvern directed strong bloodthirst towards me, the person who had stepped into its territory. It stared at me with blood-red eyes that burned like the sun. The black eyes characteristic of black wyverns was nowhere to be found. It is a sad beast. Someone else might feel a heart-crushing fear from seeing this black wyvern, but my heart was saying this. The guy sending bloodthirst my way was a pitiful creature who had gone half-mad with loneliness. Grah! The wyvern let out a low roar. It even has shackles on its ankles. Unlike the other wyverns, who enjoyed their freedom, this one had heavy steel shackles on its ankles, and those shackles were connected to stakes that were driven deep into the ground. Thick blocks of steel were wrapped around the stakes. To get treated like this, what exactly is his identity? It had roared towards me as if warning an enemy, but I wasn't afraid. They even just throw random scraps at it and don't even clean up afterwards. I didn't know how long he'd been here, but the whole building was penetrated with a rotten, fishy smell. You poor thing. Pity began to well up in my heart. No, I felt some other kind of intense emotion towards this wyvern with the golden stripes. Do you want to go out? I cannot help but say. As if he understood my words, the wyvern's pupils trembled. He longs for freedom. Within his trembling eyes screamed an instinct that wished to fly high in the sky. However, he had clearly accumulated a lot of distrust towards humans, and the trembling in his eyes was soon replaced by a loud roar as he brandished his sharp teeth towards me. Filled with sympathy, I took a step forward. My approach made the wyvern move, its shackles clanging together. Please do not get any closer. Just then, I heard a woman's calm voice behind me. This voice is... I clearly remembered the owner of this voice. I turned my head. A small sound escaped my lips as my expectations were met. We had only met once, but I remembered her down to her expression. She was a woman whose expression of regret towards the wyvern matched mine. That woman's name was... Chapter 30, Cursed Wyvern. It was Aegis, the older sister of Rashan and one of only 2 princesses in Budran. She was wearing a gorgeous trainee uniform embroidered in golden thread, signifying the dignity of the imperial family. Rashan said she wasn't in the imperial palace, so this is where she was. I heard that because the very first Budran emperor was a sky knight with a black wyvern, all members of the imperial family, including the emperor, had to be proficient with wyverns. Therefore, the leader of the Sky Knight Imperial Guard was traditionally not a noble, but the emperor himself. That's how inseparable wyverns were to the imperial family. It really increases her charm. I just naturally exuded a refined aura. With her neatly tied up, wavy golden hair and her glowing, clear complexion, I just broadened my knowledge on the beauty of a woman once again. Bebeto, calm yourself. Kyra is a good person. They know each other? The noble princess gazed at the seemingly discarded wyvern with regretful eyes. Then, she stepped towards him. It's dangerous. Despite my warning, I just continued approaching the wyvern named Bebeto. Did you eat? She said to the wyvern. Her voice as friendly as if speaking to a close friend. Grew. The mountain of a wyvern blinked at her question and purred like a cat. I'm sorry. I should come visit more often. Training is done now. Aija's voice held deep affection. It was surprising that a princess of a great empire could have such a soft side. With a gentle touch, Aija stroked Bebeto's leg, even though his body was incomparably filthy. You're already 5 years old. 5 years old? Then he's all grown up. Wyverns had a lifespan of 50 to 60 years. Once they reached 4 or 5, they were fully grown. He's a reliable fellow, right? Well, I suppose. Reliable? If this guy is reliable, then a chick is as strong as an elephant. Bebeto is probably the only wyvern who hasn't been able to fly in the big blue sky, even once despite being full-grown, even though he has such cool and sturdy wings. I just looked to be on the verge of tears. I saw from my position next to her that her eyelashes were softly trembling and tears were pooling in her eyes. Is it okay for a princess to be like this? According to my common sense, a princess should be even more of a spoiled brat than nobles. But I just wasn't like that at all. I was able to confirm that the smile, friendliness, and refinement she had shown me when we first met weren't pretenses. But why is Bebeto locked up in a place like this? I couldn't understand it. Even though he had the size and force to play with an ogre like a marble, he was stuck in this dark, smelly storage room. Are you unaware of the hybrid taboo? Hybrid taboo? I'd never heard of such a thing. One of the taboos among Sky Knights, passed down for who knows how long, is owning a wyvern born from hybridization. Why is that a problem? He looks sturdier and stronger than other wyverns. The moment one tries to fly with Babetto, he would be the first to be attacked by every wyvern from the enemy's side. What the heck? Then if you fly with him, you get ganged up on? For whatever reason, wyverns become aggressive upon seeing a hybrid wyvern. Even Sky Knights themselves will aim at hybrid wyverns first. Essentially, for some reason, wyverns do not mate between races. When a wyvern is rarely born of such hybridization, it often causes a problem. It happens very rarely, but sometimes a hybrid with unexpected strength is born. The taboo against such wyverns is severe, so hybrid wyverns are considered cursed. That is because the owners of hybrid wyverns have all been killed by other wyverns and their Sky Knights. Mixed blood racism. Racism towards mixed blood people was slowly becoming an issue in Korea as well. It seemed Babetto was a victim of such bullying. In particular, Babetto is a hybrid of two of the strongest wyvern races, black and gold wyverns. I suspect that the moment someone takes Babetto to the sky, they would be targeted by every wyvern and Sky Knight around. Despite his strength, because of this ridiculous taboo, Babetto was cast away. May I ask how you became involved with Babetto, Your Highness? Babetto, the hybrid wyvern, was taboo enough to be considered cursed. There should have been no way for them to have met within the imperial palace, which valued honor and prestige above all else. When I became 10 years old and could choose my own black wyvern, I met Babetto for the first time. Black wyvern babies had not been born for 2 years, but it was then that Babetto was born. As she spoke, I just stroked Babetto's hide. Lucky bastard. Anyone would be able to understand why I would be jealous of a poor guy who was enjoying Ija's hand. Bear it a little longer. I will let you have a taste of the blue skies soon. How could she be so kind-hearted? A person raised in an imperial palace should be eating rudeness as an appetizer, and arrogance as the main course, and pride as a dessert. Ija's gentle and friendly spirit was somehow uplifting. Please leave now. It won't be good if others find out that you have met Babetto. To be living worse than a filthy mutt on the streets. From the moment I saw him, I felt strangely drawn to Babetto. He was a lonely wyvern visited by no one other than the princess. Ha 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 ha! What kind of crazy fool is laughing using mana? As I followed Aegis outside, someone's raucous laughter rang through the yard. Heedless of the fact that this was a place filled with countless wyverns and their noble Sky Knight masters, a man was laughing with extreme arrogance. Who is it? I said testily, unable to contain myself. Chill, please be quiet. It's him, I just whispered, putting a hand to her lips. HM? Who? The next emperor of this empire, the Crown Prince. Oh man, that shit-tempered Crown Prince is here too. When the Crown Prince was mentioned, I suddenly thought of one guy, the next lord of the Fazine Duke household and a friend of the Crown Prince, Tedran. No wonder I had a bad feeling. Even though the current emperor was revered as the heavenly ruler, he was the setting sun while the Crown Prince was the rising sun. Moreover, this was a covert filled with nobles. I could guess that the meeting ahead wasn't going to be filled with pleasantries. But why did I just refer to him like that? The Crown Prince may have come from a different mother, but they were half-siblings with the same emperor father. She's afraid of him. I could see it now. A strand of anxiety was running through Ija's clear and pure sky-blue eyes. There's something going on in the imperial family. From the attempt on the kiddo's life and Princess Ija's expression, I could see that the imperial family was shrouded in dark clouds. Bam, squeal. What's with the sound of pigs? When we were almost out the door, I suddenly heard the squealing of an orc. Please be careful. He is violent. I just didn't hesitate to warn me about the violent nature of her elder brother, the Crown Prince, Paltiverin. Hearing those words from her, I could tell that the rumors about Paltiverin were warranted. Thank you for worrying about me. Crown Prince, or whatever, if you fuck with me, I'll knock you down. I just was unaware of one thing, and that was that my personality was as tenacious as Paltivirin's. Eat up, Beavis. It's very delicious, right? Monsters as a meal? As Princess Aegis and I slowly walked out in order to prevent detection, I saw a spectacle unfolding outside. At least 10 black wyverns were sitting in the wide clearing at the center of Kerphone Covert. There were also Sky Knights who looked to be the wyverns' owners, as well as a similar number of orcs. The orcs, who were seen as nuisances all over the continent, were all trembling. Pierced in multiple places by wyvern claws, blue blood was flowing from their bodies. Despite that, the orcs had completely given up all resistance. As dauntless as they normally were, in front of the top monsters, wyverns, they were mere mice in front of tigers. That guy is the Crown Prince. The 10 or so Sky Knights all had cruel smiles on their faces. At their center was a handsome young man with strawberry golden hair. The Crown Prince was wearing an air plate that clearly differentiated him from the other Sky Knights. It had a black base with golden adornments. Tyrannical. That was my first impression of Poltvarn. With his slightly squared chin and large eyes, nose, lips, as well as a robust physique and reddish golden hair, the Crown Prince's temperament gave me the image of a raging fire. Oh, so sorry, Beavis likes warm, beating hearts. Sky Knights and cadets were gathering by the minute. The Crown Prince unsheathed his sword adorned with gold and jewels in front of the crowd. Damn! Then he plunged his sword without an ounce of hesitation into the chest of an orc that had fallen, trembling, to the ground. Squeal! Accompanied by the orc's scream, Poltvarn cut away at the orc's rib cage with his mana-imbued sword. Then, pulling out the heart of the flailing and still-alive orc, the Crown Prince laughed. Haha, this one's very fresh. He would be perfectly suited to work at the neighborhood butcher shop, not be the next master of the great Budgeran Empire. Groar! Poltvarn's wyvern, Beavis, made a happy sound upon seeing the pounding, blue orc heart. The wyvern was a head bigger than the other wyverns in the area. With a crunch, Beavis snapped up the heart and swallowed it. Ha, eat lots. Let's go hunting for ogres tomorrow. If he goes on like this, an Emperor Nero 2.0 might come out. I was no soothsayer, but I could see the Crown Prince's future with a single glance. How could a Crown Prince who would lead the great empire in the future do such a crude thing? If he wanted to feed hearts to his wyvern, then all he had to do was call his attendants. But the Crown Prince dirted his own hands with violent actions. It made me sorry for orcs despite them being the enemies of humankind. He's covered in magic. The Crown Prince's air plate was on a different level from a normal knight's plate mail. The main section is mithril alloy, and it's got several high-level spells supported by magic crystals. The thing definitely cost hundreds of thousands of gold. If it was made with an alloy with only a low amount of mithril, enspelled armor that protected a wyvern's heart and body could actually be cheaper to produce than an air plate made for a Sky Knight. Enchanting a huge piece of armor with magic circles was a world of difference from doing the same to a small, human-sized armor. An exquisite work of mana, created by the efforts of skilled mage, could not be measured in money. That was especially true for the Crown Prince's luxury air plate, which, from looking at its circuitry, had a 6-circle magic circle at its heart. Eat up, as much as you want, Poltvarn cried. Ruhar. At his words, the wyvern's bloodthirsty eyes gleamed bright. Squeal! With horrific ripping noises, the wyvern's teeth and claws bore into the orcs. Blue blood fountained from the orcs' bodies as they were torn like paper. The wyverns enjoyed their meal while crunching up the bones and flesh of the orcs, which the group had definitely caught personally. Blarg! Nausea rushed up inside me as I watched the wyverns slurping up the hot, steamy orc entrails like noodles and chewing up the legs and bodies with their sturdy fangs. Bleg! Erg! Some of the cadets who had never seen such a violent scene before could not endure the sight and vomited on the spot. Eat lots. Lots and lots. Ha 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 ha. Poltvarn watched the wyverns eating, his eyes twisted in madness. Isn't he just crazy? My innocent evaluation of Crown Prince Poltvarn, a complete and utter nut job.